I want to open this video with a warm thank you to all you good people and not so good people. It gives me a warm and fuzzy feeling when you take 10 minutes out of your week to listen to me bang on about, well, anything really. Just to answer a few questions, no, I have never studied journalism. No, I am not a comic. Yes, I video and edit all of my videos on my own. No, I'm not sick and dramatically losing weight, although I did look back at some of my earlier videos and I must say I was a bit of a chubber. No, I'm not an alcoholic. What alcoholic would admit to being an alcoholic? I really maybe only have 2 or 3 whiskeys a week. 2 of them normally when I'm doing this. And yes, it is whiskey, not tea. Yes, I do work and I am fortunate that it does take me to some incredible outback towns. It is very different from doing this and it does require rational and critical thinking, negotiation and resilience skills, and the ability to remain calm in hostile situations. A bit like this during the comments. Calm. If you haven't checked out any of my road trips, I'll leave a link in the description if you would like to see parts of my beautiful backyard here in Australia, mainly Queensland. Anywho, it eventually had to happen, and this isn't the only case where children have made some silly decision because their entitled, self-absorbed, unformed brain screamed rebellion and to show the world how independent they are. Let me ask you, what's the best thing to do when you had that genital piercing, tattoo of an ex, or that big day out experimenting with drugs goes terribly wrong, and now as an adult with a fully formed functioning brain, you want to right the wrongs? Well, easy. You remove the piercing, get laser treatment on that annoying tattoo, and get clean and never take illegal drugs again. But what about a decision you made as an immature, self-righteous, I know who I am kind of teenager who now regrets his or her decision? Easy. You blame it on everyone else except owning it and taking responsibility. This is actually a really sad story. Keira Bell is a 23-year-old woman who is taking legal action against an NHS gender clinic and says that she should have been challenged more by medical staff over her decision to transition to a male as a teenager.
I felt angry that, no one was there to really say any different, and I was allowed to run with this idea that I had, or, almost like a fantasy as a teenager. I was allowed to run with that, and it has affected me in the long run as an adult. I'm very young. I've only just kind of stepped into adulthood, and I have to, deal with this kind of burden or such a radical difference in comparison to others at least.
Now, in all fairness to the clinic, they did exactly what you wanted, because that's how it works nowadays. Remember what your parents told you? Keira, you can be and do anything you want, and if you want to be a boy, well, don't let responsible, mature adults get in your way. And now that you aren't happy, let's sue the clinic. Incredibly, a judge gave the go-ahead for a full hearing of the case against the Tavistock and Portman NHS Trust. Lawyers will argue that children cannot give informed consent to treatment delaying puberty or helping them to transition, which is what lawyers have always argued. So where were you when she made this decision as a teenager? Why weren't you there with a case against the parents when this poor, confused child needed adult intervention? Sorry, what was that? Oh, arguing that children have rights? Human rights? The Tavistock said it always took a cautious approach to treatment. Gender identity charity Mermaid said that people face a long wait for access to such services and that they can save lives and that very few people regret their decision. The fact that you had to say very few people regret their decision should not come out of your pathetic mouth. This isn't a tattoo or shaving off all their hair. This is mutilating a human being who suffered from body dysmorphia. We can now say this because she never really wanted to.
And during that time that I was on cross-sex hormones, I underwent a double mastectomy procedure where I had my breast removed. And that was the end of the process for me, and I came off of the hormones just last year.
The clinic based in Hampstead, northwest London, which runs the UK's only Gender Identity Development Service, GIDS, added that it welcomed an examination of the evidence in this contentious area. Keira Bell is one of the claimants and will give evidence in the judicial review, which is likely to be heard in a couple of months. But she isn't the only one. A second claimant, known only as Mum A, is the mother of a 15-year-old girl with autism who is awaiting treatment at the clinic. Autism. Like most young girls who can mix it up with the boys in the sandpit, Keira describes being a tomboy as a child. When asked how strongly she felt the need to change her gender identity, she replied that it gradually built up as she found out more about transitioning online. Oh, the source of all information, the internet. Yes, not from a reputable psychologist or psychiatrist or a trained healthcare professional. I mean, Rusty, your neighbour next door, could have given you better advice than some of the rubbish that you read on the net. In fact, don't sue the clinic, sue the people who published the article and sue the internet search engine you used for publishing this garbage. And of course, Keira was on a roll because once you finish with the internet, your mushy brain is full of an ideology that leads you to look for a medical practitioner who, of course, handballs it to a gender identity development service. Yep, not a trained body dysmorphic psych or Rusty your neighbour, but the Tavistock GIDS at the ripe old age of 16. And we know how ridiculous 16-year-olds can be, don't we?
How dare you!
See what I did there? And in just 3 one-hour-long appointments, she was prescribed puberty blockers. You know, the dangerous drug which delays the development of signs of puberty, like periods or facial hair. There you go, honey. It only took 3 hours, and all of your immature decisions will now come true. But today, as a somewhat mature adult, he woke up one day and said, "What the hell have I done? How do I get out of this? I know, I'll lawyer up and call the media and tell them that there wasn't enough investigation or therapy before I reached that stage of making this decision. I should have been challenged on the proposals or the claims that I was making for myself."
I would have liked to have, some sort of intensive therapy, really. I think that I should have been challenged on the proposals or the claims that I was making for myself, and I think that would have made a big difference as well.
If I was just challenged on the things I was saying. For all the parents out there who have a teenager, next time they want to try alcohol, stay over at a boy or a girl's house, or even get Botox, challenge them and let me know how you go. Honey, I don't think it's a good idea that you try alcohol. Your fragile brain and body really can't handle it. Thanks, Mum and Dad. You make so much sense. I should go upstairs and clean my room and put my dirty clothes in the wash basket. Yeah, right. A year after starting the puberty blockers, she said that she was prescribed the male hormone testosterone, which developed male characteristics like facial hair and a deep voice. 3 years ago, she had an operation to remove her breasts. That's called mutilation.
It is very difficult. I know initially I felt very relieved and very happy about things, but I think as the years go on, you start to feel less and less enthusiastic or even happy about it.
Do ya think?
And, continue to dig yourself deeper into this hole, or you can choose to kind of, come out of that and have the weight lifted off of your shoulders.
Well, according to you, you had the weight lifted off your shoulders at around 17 by all accounts. Just saying. She decided to stop taking cross-sex hormones at 23 and said she was now accepting of her sex as a female, which is what you should have done at 16 and then make the decision as a mature adult, not an immature teenager. But she was also angry about what had happened to her since she was 13. She said, "I was allowed to run with this idea that I had. It was almost like a fantasy as a teenager, and it has affected me in the long run as an adult. I'm very young. I've only just stepped into adulthood and I have to deal with this kind of burden or radical difference in comparison to others at least. Now get this, it is alleged that a former staff at the clinic have raised concerns that teenagers who want to transition to a different gender are being given puberty blockers without adequate assessment or psychological work. Boom! And there we have it. This clinic should be shut down for preying on children's emotions for profit. Scumbags. It has also been claimed that children as young as 12 have received the drugs. But she also understands why teenagers arrive at the clinic deeply distressed and desperate to change their gender. Why? Now why? Why would they be deeply distressed? Help me understand. Why is that? She says, I did say the same thing years ago when I went to the clinic. I would say it was saving me from suicidal ideation and depression in general, and at the time I felt it relieved all those mental health issues I was feeling, alongside gender dysphoria. Again, this just goes to prove that children cannot make adult decisions. She described her life as being difficult. She also believes that if she had felt more accepted by society as she was then, she might not have wanted to change her gender. She added that she wouldn't have wanted to listen to the voices of caution when she was younger. You mean like Rusty, your neighbour? I think the World Cup octopus could have helped you with this.
I feel like I could say anything to my 16-year-old self, but you know, I might not necessarily listen at that time, and that's kind of the point of this case, is that, you know, when you are that young, you don't really want to listen to anyone. And
perfect. Do a TED Talk, get on the world stage, organise a rally, create a movement, because this is important and every child should hear your story.
I think it's up to these, you know, institutions like the Tavistock to step in and make children reconsider what they're saying, because it is, you know, a life-altering path that you're going down.
No. Dr. Polly Carmichael is the consultant clinical psychologist who runs the Gender Identity Development Service. She praised Keira for speaking out, but insisted the clinic did have a thorough assessment process. Yes, we know, 3 hours and gummy bears. She describes their approach as cautious and said they work closely with children and their families to reach the right decisions for them, with fewer than half of those seen going on to take puberty blockers or cross-sex hormones. Oh, so it's only the other half that you mess up. Am I the only one here? But we are talking about children, right? Like children. Kids with school bags and jumping castles. This is a really complex area with strong feelings on all sides, and at its centre, the young people we work with. They come to us in often really great distress around their sense of themselves. We're talking about identity here, their identity and a feeling that their gender identity does not match that body. Yeah, right, look, I wake up most days feeling like a woman. Woman. Gender identity charity Mermaids provides support to trans and gender diverse young people and their families. Its chief executive Susie Green has defended the current process, which she said was based on years of research, and said that she hoped the judicial review would shine a light on young people's experiences. Well, your current process is flawed. She told the BBC News that many people who approached the charity were very distressed, and that research had suggested puberty blockers could help reduce rates of self-harm and suicide. Oh, so there is the answer. If you're self-harming or depressed, just go and get some puberty blockers. And she said it was not proportionate to take away services because of a very small number of people who regretted undergoing medical intervention. The process is very detailed. They get a lot of information about the benefits, the pitfalls, and the projected outcomes of what comes of any kind of medication. So they make informed consent, and that underpins the NHS. Really? Then what happened to Keira? I have so much more to say, but I'm going to finish with this. All children have the right to be safe and protected from harm. Of course you can make some decisions like what to wear and what to eat. But if you need a so-called trained professional to help you make a decision that is going to affect the rest of your life, why not just wait a couple of years and have a 3-hour consultation with Rusty next door? I would love to know your thoughts about this whole sad story. If you could talk to a 13-year-old Keira, what would you tell her? And on a serious note, I would love to hear from the trans community. I think you may be able to shed some light on this discussion. And if I'm out of line, I'm sure I'm going to have my detractors. Please like and share this video, and by subscribing and hitting the notification bell, it will ensure that you will never miss out on having a whiskey with me. I'm Gerald Pauschmann for The Point TV. Cheers, Rudy. Oh, that is good.